optimistic in surmounting security challenges in parts of the country.
That is provided by the Constitution, which is to guarantee life and safety of property of every Nigerian.
Experts harp on increased Lassa fever sensitization and counseling, especially at the grassroots.
With their food, they are breaking, so they need to wash it thoroughly to prevent all this Lassa.
Federal governments applauded over tax exemption on household goods and services in reduced value-added tax.
When the government turns around and spend this money on welfare services, things that benefit the poor, it promotes the well-being.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the 2019 Corruption Perception Index.
Now, since 1995, Transparency International, an anti-corruption non-governmental organization with over 100 chapters worldwide, has been publishing an annual corruption perception index which ranks countries between least corrupt to most corrupt.
That's right, Rhoda. And by assuming the role of the global anti-corruption referee, Transparency International relies on data sourced from certain experts and the business community of the countries analyzed, who then give their perceptions about the level of corruption in the public sector of that particular country. And usually, each of the 180 countries analyzed ends up with a score of between 0 and 100. And the higher a country scores close to 100, the better it is perceived to be tackling corruption.
In Transparency International latest Corruption Perception Index for 2019 released last Thursday, the Sub-Saharan Africa region was classified as the lowest performing region, while Western Europe was the highest scoring region in anti-corruption.
Now, according to the Transparency International rating, Denmark and New Zealand, both with a score of 87, as it were, in terms of the corruption perception, alongside some other northern European countries, scored much higher, whereas countries such as Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen were at the bottom of the rung.
Nigeria scored 26 out of 100 points and was ranked 146 out of 180 countries analyzed. This, however, showed that Nigeria slipped down 2 places compared to her 2018 ranking of 144 out of the 180 countries.
Now, Nigeria was also ranked the 4th most corrupt country out of the countries in the West African sub-region. But this has, however, been strongly discredited by the Nigerian government, saying that it is a far cry from the remarkable strides and progress recorded by the present administration in the fight against corruption.
Well, the FCC, in rejecting Transparency International's ranking of Nigeria, noted that its report is not supported by any empirical data or known indices of corruption. Of course, mixed reactions have trailed the 2019 Corruption Perception Index.
Some Nigerians who have kicked against the report are also calling for an African Corruption Perception Index by Africans, while others argue that Transparency International does not, for example, actually measure corruption, but rather perceptions of corruption, and that what is perceived certainly cannot be real all the time. So what are the merits or the demerits of the Corruption Perception Index? And can Nigeria leverage on the parameters of the Corruption Perception Index to strengthen its own anti-corruption fight?
These and sundry issues our guests will speak to as we discuss the 2019 Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International on Good Morning Nigeria today. It is the last Monday of January. Of course, it's been indeed a very, very long month. January is always like 2 months combined together, considering what has happened in the previous month. And indeed, it's rolling quite fast, not as slow as I thought it would be. But then it's been a beautiful January. On this note, we want to say thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria. We're broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. From our studios here in Abuja, I am Rhoda Anona.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Rhoda in also welcoming you to the program. It's possible that Rhoda probably has received an alert, which is why she's saying that the month isn't as slow as she would have thought, because January is often regarded, again, this is a matter of perception, that January is the longest month of the year, where people would have spent themselves broke over the Christmas and New Year holiday expenses.
It's school fees week. Last week and this week is like school fees week.
That's right. September is also a tough month for parents who pay school fees. So why is September not regarded as the longest month? September has only 30 days. January has 31 days, and several other months of the year also have 31 days. But February, of course, is a leap year this year, so it has 29 days. All right. So in the course of our program today, we'll bring you our regular complimentary segments, newspaper review, business, and others. Of course, you are all aware now that the world of sports and indeed all others are in mourning. This is an account of the tragedy that occurred yesterday in California following the helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant and his daughter, along with several other persons on board, about 7 others. Kobe Bryant is regarded as one of the best to have played the game of basketball. He was 41 years old. May their souls rest in peace.
Amen. All
right, let's take the highlights of the morning news now. Here's our colleague, Lydia Odije. Morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Kingsley and Rhoda. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has received assurances from the military that with the Hamilton dust gradually easing its hold on the skies, fighter aircraft will this week join the efforts to provide effective air attacks against bandits, kidnappers, and rustlers that have been attacking remote communities around Dogongona Forest in Niger State. The president described the repeated attacks as a disaster for the nation and authorized the deployment of air power to support troops and policemen deployed to the difficult terrain to counter the menace of the attackers operating in the forest area bordering Kaduna, Niger, and Zamfara states. President Buhari commiserates with the government and people of Niger State following the attacks and the loss of lives that followed, and assures that victim communities in the state will not be abandoned by the rest of the country. Meanwhile, troops under Operation Mesa have rescued 5 kidnapped victims at Dogongona Shiroro local government area of Niger State. A statement by the Nigerian Army Operations Media Coordinator, Colonel Aminu Ilyasu, indicates that 2 kidnapped victims were also rescued on the fringes of Zugu Forest in Sokoto State. Similarly, troops of Operation Lafia Dole foiled an attack on an IDP camp in Gamborun, Ngala in Borno State and rescued 5 humanitarian staff taking refuge in a bunker during the encounter. Colonel Ilyasu noted that troops of the Nigerian Army, Cameroonian Defense Forces, and Civilian Joint Task Force have killed 5 Boko Haram members during clearance of terrorist hideouts in Abaram Axis in Bama, Borno State. The statement adds that Operation Quick Blow is ongoing to ensure safety on major roads linking Borno and Adamawa states to other parts of the country. In the same vein, President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration will not relent until the security challenges bedeviling the country are addressed. This was in a message to condole with the national president of the Church of the Brethren in Nigeria at its headquarters in Hong, local government area of Adamawa State, over the killing of Reverend Lawan Andimi by insurgents.
Ask the president to function in that office and also carry out his responsibilities and duties that is provided by the Constitution, which is to guarantee life and safety of property of every Nigerian.
Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika says the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology Zaria is to receive Boeing 737 full-motion flight training simulator from Canada in March. He disclosed this in Canada, where he stated that the facility will increase NCAT's capability, save forex, and reduce costs incurred by our airlines. Sirika added that a well-trained, proficient pilot is #1 key to safety. Economy experts are applauding federal government's decision on tax exemption on household goods and services upon the review of the value-added tax from 5% to 7.5%. They express hope that the expected revenue from the reviewed VAT, if properly utilized, should provide the needed revenue to finance key government projects.
Critical segment, the critical mass that were supposed to suffer if they were not provided for, had been excluded, including small, medium and small companies, up to 25 million turnover, which is very commendable.
When the government turns around and spends this money on welfare services, things that benefit the poor, it promotes the well-being of them.
And now to health matters. As fear rises over the outbreak of the Lassa fever in some states of the Federation, experts harp on awareness and counseling, especially at the grassroots. To this end, the fire officers' wives took the initiative of providing education for some nursing mothers on the deadly disease in Sheda, a suburb of the Federal Capital Territory.
With their food, they are breaking, so they need to wash it thoroughly to prevent all this Lassa.
So I think when we come out with something like this, at least it will come a long way for the people, and most especially the nursing mother.
Wash our clothes, bath. If we do like that, we cannot have the sickness.
The governor of Plateau State, Simon Bakola Long, and 32 others are among recipients of Pope Francis Knight recognition. The event took place in Divine Cathedral of Mercy, Laminga, Jos.
This responsibility is also expected to provide us the opportunity, help foster and develop vocations to the priesthood, religious life, and holy matrimony within the church, so as to ensure that the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ is propagated.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Rhoda after this break. Good morning.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 50 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Goge Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnerships with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Studio 24, Delta Airlines, Toll Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@gogeafrica.tv. Goge Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
Not so fast. Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down.
Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone is arranging, Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin. I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad, or even end up in prison.
Where's your mom?
Today is her toilet day.
What?
Helen!
Toilet day?
Tomorrow you're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation.
Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with all this. It still won't be party ready.
Impossible.
Challenge. New Ticker Harpic 10X. Even if you use this solution 10 times, it won't give you the same cleaning like Harpic. Its new Ticker formulation sticks to the bowl better, removes old stains, and gives you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow!
New Harpic 10X gives me the freedom from toilet day. New Harpic 10X for 10 times better cleaning.
This year, the weather conditions Harmattan in Nigeria is harsh, with temperature dropping very low in some parts of the country. Many underprivileged children are exposed to these harsh weather conditions, putting them at risk to all sorts of respiratory infections with devastating consequences. We request well-meaning Nigerians to kindly donate warm clothing, blankets, beverages, soap, moisturizers, and other essential items for the benefit of these children. Get involved to support displaced and underprivileged children exposed to these harsh weather conditions. Powered by Aisha Buhari Foundation.
I'm Deputy Comptroller of Customs Joseph Atta, the spokesman for the joint security exercise. Over a period of time, either through indifference or deliberate non-compliance to the ECOWAS protocol on transit of goods by our neighbors, the Nigerian Customs Service have been raising this issue. MOUs were signed severally. They were broken as soon as they were signed. We've seized over 32,050 kg bags of rice. And that is a huge impact. And then the fact that the coming in of this foreign rice have been completely shut down. We've gone around, we've received testimonies of farmers who, before now, found it difficult to sell one truck on a market day. These people say it now that those who could not sell one can now sell up to 20 trucks.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on Africa's largest TV network, NTA. Let's take a look at what's happening in the world of business with Kolo Muhammad.
Good morning and good to have you along. When we took a trip back in time in the opening days of 2020, we told you the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria didn't raise rates for some time. That status quo is still being maintained, even though when the committee rose from its maiden meeting for the year 2020 on Friday, 24th January, it raised the cash reservation ratio from 22.5% to 27.5%. And here is why.
The committee felt that there would be a lot of liquidity in the market and there was a need for the bank to do something to mop the excess liquidity to a level that it considers optimal to be able to run the economy in a way that the level of excess liquidity does not become injurious to the economy. That is the reason committee felt, look, let's adopt the blunt process of taking this liquidity out by increasing the CRR from 22.5% to 27.5%.
Gradually, the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement has continued to gain traction with all the countries in Africa and estimated $3.2 trillion GDP and a population of over 1 billion people. Africa is on the verge of becoming a global hub for sustainability. Is Africa aware of this feat it's about to achieve? Well, that's a profound question. The United Kingdom may be preparing to be part of this new Africa as it recently held UK-Africa Business Summit for the first time. Experts say Africa must prepare sufficiently for what the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is bringing up, and part of the real sectors to fine-tune Africa's readiness after power supply is the aviation sector.
Aviation is everything that you need in that African continental free trade we're discussing. It's not possible for any nation to benefit maximally from that initiative without being able to move goods and services very quickly, and then move humans from one point of the African nation to the other. And then it's also not going to be profitable to rely on other airlines to come in to your nation and offer you services that your own national airline should be able to offer to your people.
And activities on the floor of the Nigerian stock market for the week opens today. And as always, NTA Business News will bring you closing figures subsequently. Many thanks for having you along. I am Kolo Muhammad in Abuja. Be with you again soon.
Thank you very much for that business package. Next for us is Newspaper Review.
As always, to give more insight into our review this morning is our regular newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebi. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How's your weekend?
Fine. Very restful.
Yes,
good morning, Nigeria.
I can see it's obvious.
Yeah, Bayo, good to see you. Yeah, it was otherwise a restful weekend until by a time, late last night when the news broke of the helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant,
yes. Earlier.
Sometimes his daughter was also on the flight.
That's right.
And I think 7 other passengers.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
Really very sad.
The helicopter it was a very delicate aircraft. Very delicate. I mean, you saw what happened to the former chairman of Leicester, whose helicopter took off from the stadium after the match. And suddenly, there was some catastrophic failure that led to his death. So, their souls rest in peace. All right, so we'll take a look at the papers this morning. The Punch is first above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper. Discos reject 5,451 megawatts of electricity in 1 week. Discos reject 5,451 megawatts of electricity in 1 week. Details on page 48. Danjuma's criticism of my regime, one-man opinion. That's according to President Buhari. 7.5% VAT implementation begins February 1st. Page 48. And on page 18, start strike immediately, your salary is stopped, ASU tells lecturers. 2 earpieces beside the nameplate. We are working with Buhari to save APC beyond 2023. That's according to governors. I take Leah's motherhood status with all pleasure. That's according to the father. Details on page 12. Amotekun proposed law, that's the kicker. Personnel will have power to arrest criminals, says Attorney General. State House of Assembly to get draft bill before March 1st. Amotekun debate shows there's need to renegotiate Nigeria. That's according to Bakari. Otom threatens to drag superb contractors to EFCC. And NLC writes El-Rufai over withheld dues. APC, PDP candidates win reruns in strongholds. A $9.6 billion judgment. P&ID claims victory at Friday hearing. And Buhari orders NAF, that's Nigerian Air Force, to bomb Zamfara, Niger, and Kaduna bandits. Details on page 37.
All right, let's quickly take a look at the leadership. On the leadership, just below the nameplates, it says revenue leakages, shippers council seek reintroduction of CTN. NPA orders diversion of cargoes to eastern ports. Be aggressive in tax collection, federal government tells FIRS. That's on page 36. And the big story on the leadership this morning, my relationship with Vice President Oshibajo perfect, says President Muhammadu Buhari, orders air power against bandits in Niger, Kaduna, and Zamfara states. Beside the picture story, we're working to resolve APC crisis, says governors. Party won't collapse after President Muhammadu Buhari's statement. There's credited to Governor Akeredolu. And to the foot of the paper now, State Congress stops agenda as PDP neck meet meets today. Kogi records 1 death, 3 cases of Lassa fever. That's on page 14. On page 13, Mayam Sanda knows fate today. Troops avert Boko Haram attack in Borno, and basketball legend Kobe Bryant killed in helicopter crash. All right, Bayo.
Well, the only deputy girl of the 110 that was not returned is now said to be a mother. She's said to have put a baby boy to bed on Saturday. Daily Trust reports that a Boko Haram commander is said to be the father of the baby boy. The deputy college is in Bulablin in Yusufari local government area of Yobe State. We may recall that she was the only one held back because she refused to renounce her faith. Now, apart from the criminal abduction, there is apparently rape added to the criminality that the terrorists have committed in this regard. A father who has apparently resigned to faith says that the birth of the baby is a welcome development. At least it has given all the indication that she is still alive. There had been speculation about whether she was alive or not alive. President Muhammadu Buhari has given the Nigerian Air Force authority to deploy their air power to support ground troops and police in the challenges of banditry in the fringes of Niger State. There is a forest in Niger State that is called Dogon Daji Forest, I think, and it is a forest that spans across Niger, Kaduna, and Zamfara State, and it has been the area where bandits, after kidnapping people, have been lurking in the area. In spite of initiatives by ground troops and the police to tackle them, Harmattan haze has limited the support for air power. What the haze now abating, President has authorized the Nigerian Air Force to go in to give main support to exterminate, if possible, the bandits who are causing mayhem in those areas. Another response from President Muhammadu Buhari is when he granted an interview on online media, and the online media journalist asked, what is the relationship between, how is the relationship with you and Vice President Professor Yomi Oshibaju? And the President retorted, very fine. And he asked, what has he complained to you? Also asked about his comment about what General Theophilus Danjuma, retired, said at Ibadan at a book launch. The general was said to have said that if he releases the information he has about what is happening in Nigeria, Nigerians will not sleep. President Muhammadu Buhari is said to have replied that what matters most is the mandate of Nigerians that ensure his re-election last year, and the opinion of one person compared to those who voted for him is very insignificant.
All right, but let's quickly take the Daily Sun. Just beside the nameplate there, you see it says Lassa fever death toll hits 24, spreads to more states. Enugu government denies death of nurse. Bakari ex-SGF clash over Amotekun, that's on page 39. PDP APC suffer rerun defeat. That's the lead story on this Daily Sun. PDP trounces Abdul Mumin in Kano as APC snatches victory in Cross River. That's the lead story on the Daily Sun. Of course, the picture story there is that of seeing fire incidents at Amu Plank Market in Mushin, Lagos. Sympathizers at the scene of the fire incident at Amu Plank Market in Mushin. You can see them. That's the picture story there. Below that, 2023 Southeast deserves to produce the next president, says Yakasai. That's on page 39. 12-year-old killed as Boko Haram hits Borno Mosque. Troops pound terrorists, arrest informants, and Buhari orders airstrike against bandits in Niger and other states. Nigeria to gain from Mako agreement deal, says Malami. That's on page 8. But let's talk about the issue of the Lassa fever.
Yes, there is one, the cases in Kogi State, there's one death reported and 3 other cases. But so far, the death toll is about 81, and the confirmed cases have also increased from 60s to about 12 now. In 2018, Lassa fever was here, And at that time, there were about 1,081 cases, and the death toll rose to about 90. But in meanwhile, the national Nigeria agency that is for disease control has alerted the nation about emergency measures. This is to ensure that the spread is contained. Meanwhile, there are states that have been identified as where there are confirmed cases. These include Ondo, Edo, Delta, Plateau, Bauchi, Taraba. There are suspected cases in some of these states. Some of the states have denied. They include Ebonyi, Zamfara, Ogun, Kebbi, Federal Capital Territory, as well as Cross River and Akwa Ibom State. The coronavirus, too, in China, death toll is said to have risen to about 86. As at the last count, 2,786 persons have been infected, and there are other 42 persons who have caught the coronavirus abroad. This includes Thailand and the United States of America. So far, it has not gotten to Africa, and we hope it will come near here.
There's some curiosity I have about some of these viral infections. Lassa fever occurs in Nigeria virtually every year, and we can see the figures are climbing already. But there appears to be no worldwide alert with regard to Lassa fever in Nigeria. And yet the coronavirus in China has provoked almost a global alert. It's not yet a global public health emergency, declared by the WHO. But of course, the Chinese authorities themselves have put a number of cities on lockdown and canceled a number of activities, surrounding their New Year celebrations. So, what is it? This is for the experts to explain. What is the difference in terms of spread or the fatality arising therefrom between Lassa fever, on which or about which there is no global alert, and then coronavirus? That's one. Second point is, well, there's a global alert now with regard to coronavirus. I want to know, why does it appear to be the case that China is the point of origin of some of these viruses that cause global alert? If you recall, there was a bird flu, or SARS, they called it. Another one was swine flu, or swine fever. All kinds of, now is coronavirus. So why is China, as it were, the incubator for these viruses? I have no idea, really. I'm just
well, the coronavirus is a respiratory virus, and I think I watched an interview for the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, and he said he described coronavirus as a matter of concern, but it's not as deadly as it's been painted. Compared to Lassa fever, I think Lassa fever is more dangerous than coronavirus, and therefore that question you ask, why is there alarm about coronavirus rather than alarm on Lassa fever? Lassa fever has its origin in Nigeria, and annually, or it has been a recurrence. Particularly now, if we look back, there was a recurrence in 2018. But since its advent, apparently it had been contained. And we need to be very careful, because it goes on the increase during this dry Harmattan season, where rodents are very common and their population goes on the increase. There is also the added danger of containers that bring in goods from outside that sometimes bring some other strange rodents into the country. But the danger here is that it is here with us. We must take all the necessary precautions. And the good thing is that the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has rang the bell for emergency, and all state governments too have been enjoined to place their all personnel on alert. And they are working together with the World Health Organization and all agencies, the Federal Ministry of Health and the State Ministry of Health, to ensure that all hands are on deck, as it is often said.
Okay, all right. Bayo, took the editorial. This is the posters that we have raised now with regard to the viruses and why there's a lot on one or the other. At the earliest opportunity, one would ask Dr. Ihekwazu, who is in charge of the Center for Disease Control, or Professor Nasidi, who was his predecessor. Professor Nasidi, of course, is now a provost of the College of Medicine in one of the federal universities. Let's take our editorial this morning, and it's coming from the Blueprint newspaper. At page 12, the rampage of Harmattan infernos.
Well, we all know that when Harmattan is here, because of the dryness, items tend to reach their kindling temperature at the least increase in heat, and therefore there is need for extra precaution. My concern and the experience is that there are fires, heightened fires in markets, and the officers of the Federal Fire Services have cautioned us that while these fires is very predominant in markets, is that the spaces are choked, there are no spaces for even fire trucks to move in, and most markets also do not have the services of fire truck. And therefore, when the dry season is here, we need to be very careful. There is also the characteristics of our farmers trying to avoid the cost of labor of preparing their farms. Sometimes they deliberately set their farms on fire as a means of clearing the bush. Sometimes it gets out of hand and it can be a source of fire. And so there's need for all to be very careful. Farmers, in trying to clear their bushes for farming season, should be very careful with fire. And also, in our market areas, where most of the items are sometimes plastic and wood that they use for building their stalls, should be very careful about fires. That is why even in some markets, they make it a deliberate policy not to allow electricity. Yeah. Many of them use generators, and most often than not, storing inflammable liquids like kerosene and petrol can be a source of fires. And so we need to be very careful about all this.
All right, thank you very much, Bayan. Just to indicate that yesterday was the Grammys, and Nigeria's Burna Boy, of course, he didn't win. Angelina Kidjo won that category. Yes. But then it was good to know that at least a Nigerian was nominated, and we hope that one day the Grammys will come to Nigeria.
Hopefully so.
All right, thank you very much, Bayo, for being with us this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
Thank you too.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break, and when we come back, of course, our discussion segment will be up. We have great guests in the studio this morning, and we're discussing something that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in. Just stay with us.
As you know, kids' exam time is exam time for moms too. The child prepares intensely, so does the mom, taking care of every little thing. But germs can ruin it all. What if he falls ill on his exam day?
Every single day is important for kids. That's why they need Dettol soap. It protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday protection, everyday Dettol.
65 grams, now 150 naira.
We have love, we'll be able to unite, irrespective of tribe, religion, and culture. So we keep preaching on love. That is the only binding force. Let us love ourselves, irrespective of where the person comes from.
You are about to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on Africa's largest TV network. As a prompter for our conversation this morning on the 2019 Corruption Perception Index by the Transparency International. Let's take this background report put together by Abdusalami Jubri.
Corruption has been identified as a major cause of underdevelopment, not only in Africa, but the world at large. Transparency International, a global non-governmental organization, has for over 2 decades taken it upon itself to rank countries by their perceived levels of public sector corruption and publish the findings annually as the Global Corruption Perception Index. The index aggregates data from different sources which provide perceptions by business community and country experts of the level of corruption in the public sector. In Transparency International's latest Corruption Perception Index for 2019, Nigeria ranked 146 out of 180 countries analyzed. This shows that Nigeria slipped 2 places down compared to her 2018 ranking of 144 out of 180 countries. Also, in the 2019 ranking, Nigeria ranked the 4th most corrupt country out of the 19 countries in the West African region. The ranking has, however, been discredited by the Nigerian government, insisting that the rating is a far cry from the evident strides and progress recorded in the fight against corruption. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, on its part, maintained that Nigeria's ranking as the 4th most corrupt country in West Africa is totally unacceptable, pointing out that Transparency International's report is evidently not supported by any empirical data, especially when placed side by side with the remarkable achievements of the Commission in the past years. The report has also elicited mixed reactions amongst Nigerians, some of who have condemned the report, while others are calling for an African Corruption Index by Africans. While the Transparency International report does not show any real incidents of corruption or empirical data, can it be relied upon to determine the state of corruption in the country? Did it take into cognizance Nigerians' efforts at tackling corruption so far, and how can the country measure up to international best practices in the fight against corruption? These issues and more will engage guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
All right, thank you very much there for that background. With us here in the studios are 3 guests. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Ola Olukoyede, who is the Secretary to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Mr. Olukoyede, pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning, thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios is Professor Sadiq Isarada. He's Executive Secretary of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC. Prof, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
In the studios. Yes.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, and last but not the least, regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Dr. Garba Abari. Doc, pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning.
On the program. Well, let's just begin. Let's start first with the Director General of NOAA. Perception. It says Corruption Perception Index. And you listen to the background reports and, of course, the rebuttal by the Nigerian government saying, look, the perception doesn't match the reality of the measures that Nigeria has taken and the gains that it has achieved. When we are dealing with perception, what exactly are we grappling with? Some person says perception mirrors reality, others says perception could be a far cry from reality.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. I think in the context of what we have seen, against the backdrop of the report from the Transparency International, the perception index, or the issue of perception, which is the yardstick that is being used to judge the level of corruptibility or lack of it in the country, is something that can be taken from environment to environment. In our own kind of environment, and given the very long history that the country has come from, especially in relation to corruption and the corruption-related activities, there is a lot that the citizens perceive. There is a lot that the citizens perceive as corruption and corruption-related matters. And that is not to say that Nigerian citizens are naive. That is not to say that Nigerian citizens are cynical. But the years of the locust that the country has had to pass through over a long period has actually kind of informed the position of the citizens when matters of corruption are being spoken of. And to this extent, therefore, one cannot begrudge Nigerians the expression or how to express their perception when matters like this come up for discussion. However, is this perception a reflection of what is real? Now, this is something which is subject to a lot of analysis, a lot of examination and interrogation, and of course, a lot of what you see on ground against the backdrop of what ought to be, against the background of what people have all along been used to. So I think to this extent I can say that the perception by Nigerians is so out of place because of the very long history of what the country has to pass through as a country ranked as a very highly corrupt country. Now, however, the fact that a lot is being done and the reality now stands against what the citizens perceive tends to give you a kind of a balance, perhaps not even a balance, but a distant reality or a distant existence from what is real and what is being perceived.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Abari. Professor Rather, I would like to ask you the same question, with regard to perception versus reality.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity, and I think if we really want to analyze perception, let us get the synonyms of perception. The synonyms for perception says that we have such words as sentiment, opinion, thought, ideas, perspective. And in social analysis, once you have this kind of words, opinion, thought, ideas, perspectives, then there is a lot of subjectivity. And it is to that extent, I feel, perceptive studies based on perception can be very, very misleading. There are many reasons why academics try as much as possible to avoid studies to do with perception, for the simple reason that perception can be far away from the reality. You remember we used to say that there are two sides to a story, but today you can say there are three sides. There is their story, there is our story, there is the truth. And the fact of the matter is most perceptive studies concentrate on trying to look at their story, my story, neglecting the truth. So I feel perception, and when you want to analyze a country like Nigeria, there is every need for an agency, an outfit, an organ, an NGO to go beyond studies based on perception, to do some more rigorous work that can be intellectually accepted, going beyond perception. So for me, Transparency International has every right to assess Nigeria, but Transparency should know that Nigerians have every right to reject their report for a number of reasons, I think, which we'll go into as the program continues. So for me, studies, if you really want to gauge perceptive studies, get the synonyms of perception. You will find that they are fluid. Many of them are nebulous, and many of them are full of subjectivity. Therefore, studies based on those parameters are likely to be subjective. Let us hear their story. We should give our own story. Then we should look at the truth.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Rada. Thank you so much. Let's bring in Ola Olukoede. The FCC has gone ahead to reject this 2019 Perception Index. What is it's obvious that what is on ground is quite different from what has been released by Transparency International. What is your, let's use the word, what is the EFCC's perception of this Perception Index?
Thank you very much, madam. I rather speak to the facts than speaking to perception. Now, permit me to start on a rather philosophical perspective. Nation building is a task for all the citizens of the country, both government and the civil society. And when we talk of corruption, corruption in any nation is not carried out or perpetrated by some people from the terrestrial world. They are perpetrated by Nigerians. And when we talk of what people perceive, the same people who have also perpetrated corruption in the country will also have their own perception. And so the same people will never see anything good in what the government is doing. So I take it this way. It is the task for every Nigerian to fight corruption. Because Nigerians are the people who also perpetrate corruption. Of course, with connivance of some foreigners in certain instances. So I'd rather see it from this perspective. The report itself has indicated that this is not based on indices of corruption. So that has vitiated, the report itself. So our major concern as Nigerians should be, what is the government doing? In corruption parlance, for any country to fight corruption to its standstill, as it were, it is said that there must be the political will must be there. And a reform-minded and well-meaning Nigerian will believe that the political will is there. Political will entails setting the tone at the top. Now, there is no contesting the fact that we have a president who is not corrupt. And when you have a president who is not corrupt, it is easier for that country to fight corruption. That's one of the indices you look at. Now, that has given impetus to various organs, various individuals, civil society, who are stakeholders in the fight against corruption. Of course, Nigerians generally, to have that will to do what is right. So for me, if you come back to what we are doing to fight corruption, various policies of government, ranging from the whistleblowers policy, which has saved the federal government within a year over 64 billion naira. We're talking of the TSA. The TSA also has been able to conserve resources that ordinarily would have been plundered by these corrupt people. And of course, bring it down to agency activities. Between January and December last year, it's in the public glare that Nigeria, EFCC recorded about 1,268 convictions. Not anywhere in the world. And quote me, and I stand to be corrected, not even in the United States do we have this kind of record of conviction in one singular aspect of crime, which is corruption. And when we talk of recovery, which is also one of the things they spoke about, the report talked about, humongous amount of money has been recovered. Real estate, properties, maritime assets, and all that, they are in their throes, in their numbers. So for me, this is how the fight against corruption should be measured. We are talking of reality, because corruption is real. So if we want to determine whether we are fighting it or not, we must have what are evidentiary facts and statistical basis. And these are the statistics you have just read out now, just a few out of several. So for me, the battle is on. For those who have the kind of perception that we've read about, I will encourage Nigerians not to be perturbed. We should just be resolute. We have started well. We are going to continue well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Secretary to the EFCC. I just want to come back to Professor Rada, again, still on the issue of perception. The impression created by the CPI, that's the Corruption Perception Index, is to assume that the institutions charged with fighting corruption do not appear, to be winning the war against corruption. Now, the AFCC has already given an explanation with regard to the numbers. From the point of view of PACAC, which is the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, what are the milestones?
Well, I think we have done a lot in association with the anti-corruption agencies and the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. Ours is to advise the president, and we have done a lot regarding that. It's not for me to come and tell the world that these are the advisories who have sent to the president. Ours is to advise. He has many sources of advice. He will sift through and act accordingly. Ours is to look at these kind of reports, examine it critically, and see how you can sift out what is beneficial, if any, and then react accordingly. At the level of the committee, we have realized that, if anything, you can say that Transparency International is fairly academically lazy because it has relied completely on secondary data. And I keep saying that if you really want to, so to say, pass a verdict on a country like Nigeria, with a population of over 200 million people, with a very strong economy like this one, the most vibrant country in Africa, a country that leads the human race as far as black people are concerned, then you should do better. Why? Because for me as a sociologist, I see an association between this kind of ranking and stigmatization. By the time Transparency International consistently says that Nigeria is corrupt and we're sliding as far as corruption is concerned, possibility is some of us who are living today, our children and grandchildren will wake up one day and believe that, yeah, based on these perceptions, Nigerians are corrupt. And possibility is Nigerian children will grow up to believe that they cannot do well as a people. Therefore, we're harming their integrity in the future. We're harming their confidence. We're harming their ability to be men of integrity and honor. So we should reject whatever says of Nigeria because the stakes are very high. You can see the report saying that Western Europe, of all places, is least corrupt. I can't believe that. There is unanimity in the world that London is the central capital of looted funds. Europe is where crooks gather. It's not. But you see, Europe is perceived as least corrupt to the benefit of those of them Europeans who are living today, to the benefits of their children and grandchildren. But here we are as Nigerians leading quite a number of stakeholders. Once Nigeria is classified as corrupt, some people glorify it, and I think it's wrong. So for us as a committee, we want to see how Transparency International can convince us that their perception of Nigeria is true. Therefore, we are going to get all the data sets they used to rank Nigeria. We'll analyze them. Methodologically for us is faulty. Faulty because you cannot use secondary data and pass a kind of verdict like this one. You should go and look for primary data. Therefore, your perception is also secondary because you are relying on secondary data. So I feel as a committee, we are happy with what is happening in Nigeria. Not that the fight against corruption in Nigeria is perfect or is excellent, but to be fair to the anti-corruption agencies, we are not where we were. We are not where we want to be, but we are not as bad as this country was before this government came. So the committee is happy with what it's doing. It will challenge any negative report on the fight against corruption in Nigeria, believing that Nigeria is doing well in the fight against corruption, even though we can do better. So that is the position of the committee.
You know, I was just wondering, I mean, just wrote, I know that you want to comment. That's a point you made now with regard to some capitals in Western Europe being the haven for looted funds. Some persons have sometimes wondered whether receiving stolen property isn't a crime or isn't an index of corruption.
I wonder.
I'm asking you.
I wonder. Because, I mean, we have people who have looted Nigerian funds. They are in UK, want them back to Nigeria. Why is it taking time? Talking of billions. We have P&ID conniving with some crooks in Nigeria and crooks in Europe. Billions, more than the budget of many African countries. Therefore, one single corrupt practice by a European will total the corruption practice of 100 Africans or Nigerians. So please, Nigerians, Africans, let us support our governments. Nobody will tell our story but ourselves. Any attempt to stigmatize us and our children and our future grandchildren, we should reject it. By the time it is flogged into our psyche that we are corrupt, we keep accepting it, we glorify it, we make politics out of it. possibility is all our children will wake up with inferiority complex, with the belief that shortcut to life. I mean, after all, you have castigated me as corrupt, therefore, why do I need to be honest? We have to change that narrative, and nobody will change it for us but ourselves. Therefore, let us reject the response. Of course, we can sift out and see areas that need improvement. In sociology, we say anything you see has latent and manifest functions. The report has come, it has come to pass, and for us, there are a few things you can pick and make very good use of it. It's not that the entire stuff they have said is totally useless, but the bulk of it is not acceptable to us, it's not acceptable to Nigeria, and Nigerians should reject it because the stakes are very high, not only in Africa, but globally. Wherever you talk of Nigeria, you are talking of the black race. So by the time you keep castigating Nigeria, pulling Nigeria down as far as corruption is concerned, then the entire black race is in jeopardy.
Thank you very much. Dr. Garba Bari, it's obvious that the Transparency International has ignored, a lot of the efforts being made by this administration to tackle corruption, just as the EFCC spokesperson here has, said all of the measures that are being put in place before now that we haven't seen that this administration has put in place. But that raises a question to how authentic this perception index is and how independent Transparency International is.
Thank you very much. I think Professor Rada had already put all the issues in perspective. And I think we need to go beyond the perception now and look at the reality. We need to go beyond the perspective now. If you bring out all the indices, that go in to form the report. First, the secondary nature of the data. Second, issues like attack on journalists, political corruption in the electoral process, and what have you. These are some of the indices. And then there are also, and don't forget, that the perception index is anchored around public sector corruption. It's public sector anchored. And if it is public sector anchored, place it against what the Nigerian government had been doing in the last 4 or 5 years. All the reforms that are being done, both legal and institutional, to ensure that there is accountability in the conduct of government business, there is transparency in the conduct of government business, there is encouragement for whistleblowers so that wherever there are incidences of corruption, it is brought out to relevant agencies to tackle. Most of the corruption that you find in the public sector are all procurement related. And there are so many procurement reforms that this government has put in place, which actually has made it so that very difficult for corruption to thrive. Just like Professor Rada has said, we are not out of the woods yet, but definitely we are not where we were some few years back. Secondly, aside the reforms, there are also other indices or other global activities to which the Nigerian government, in pursuance of its anti-corruption policies, had also keyed into. The Open Government Partnership, for example. The Open Government Partnership is also one area that the government has keyed into, the idea behind which is to ensure openness, to ensure transparency, to ensure accountability, to make sure the services are actually delivered in line with international best practices. Now, if you take all of this together, you place it against what you see as perception, then you begin to ask the question, whose perception? Perception?
Well, I mean,
because Nigerians see it.
Yeah, Professor Rada raises, a very curious point about castigation leading to stigmatization. Dr. Abari, I mean, you've listed a number of policy and institutional reform measures that Nigerians are aware of. And we are seeing, of course, what is happening with regard to persons, who ordinarily would have been light-fingered and then tampered with the public till. Now, whistleblower is there, and there have been many examples of persons who have blown the whistle and what the outcome has been. TSA is there, open government partnership, reforms in procurement, all of this is going on. And yet, suddenly, you have this report which comes out and says, look, apparently, in spite of all that you have done, these are our own metrics. You have actually dropped in the ranking. I don't want. We can't possibly be mind readers, but what does this do in terms of your fight for, reorientation of Nigerians? Professor Rada makes the point again. I would like to restate. But look, if people keep drumming it into our ears that we are corrupt, will somebody not wake up and say, "Look, EFCC, what are they even doing?"
You are very correct. I am a bit wary about calling the Transparency International report partisan or political. I'm worried about that. I will not actually call it political. But there is some tinge, some self-arrogation, some self-arrogation of power to determine, who is what in the global arrangement. And if we have all now established that it's a two-way thing, we have so many of our hues and cries, our anguishes, our despair, our only related to the umbilical cord bind us to the colonial masters. And if London, for example, is seen as the haven of looted funds, and the agencies and the countries have made efforts, strenuous efforts, including invoking legal agreements for repatriation of looted funds and even submitting of certified criminals or established criminals back to their countries to face the music. And these countries actually offer them all the protection. Then definitely I want to take the report of the Transparency International with a tinge of salt. But then, to our question, we as a people must be the ones to tell our story. And this is our story. Our story is we will not continue to accept, in spite of all the efforts, and the efforts are not imagined, the efforts are real.
That's right.
The efforts are not imagined efforts. The efforts are real. They are not far-fetched. They are there for everybody to see. We are making reforms in procurement. We are making legal reforms. We are making reforms. We are making a lot of institutional reforms. We are making a lot of incursions into areas that hitherto used to be characterized with a lot of opacity. Now it is being opened, and government comes out with a lot of policies and programs which it lays like card on the table, pays up. So to that extent, Nigerians will have to understand that in spite of all that is being done, someone out there who does not have a feel of our reality is the one who is passing out the judgment. And I think we as a people must have to understand that we are the ones that should tell our story. And this is our story. What is it? Reforms here, reforms there, institutional, legal, personal, collective, and what have you, and what have you. And I think this kind of consistent stigmatization has a way of impacting on our national pride. It has a way of impacting on our national pride, on our sovereignty as a people, and of course, as it impacts on our Nigerianness, which places Nigeria as the leader of the leader of all the black people on earth. And it must be seen within this perspective.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Barry. Let's get back to Olukoide. One wonders why the Transparency International has refused to see all of the gains that we have made in the fight against corruption. And I'm wondering, just using the public sector as, a yardstick for this measurement, is that enough?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also as surprised as you are. Shortly before this report was released, I think a couple of months before then, the country rep of TI International was in our office. And we took him through all the both bigger institutional policy reform that government has put in place. We took him through the effort of all anti-corruption agencies, including the FCC. At the end of the engagement, the man was full of praises. Was full of praises for EFCC, full of praises for the effort of anti-corruption agencies, full of praises for the government. Now, to turn out, release a report, and it's quite different from what you have admitted based on evidentiary facts and statistical basis. For me, I think there is more to really be worried about. Because if you look at it, you'll be wondering, could it be that there are unseen hands somewhere trying to run this country down? And for me, I believe they are. They are, by what we see every day, the way corruption fights back. I also want to join DG. I wouldn't want to castigate TI, nor the country rep, but I want to be less perturbed. I want to be less worried about the report. Even though the point has been made, look, if you keep orientating our people along this line, will it not have effect on their psyche? But the fact remains, we must also be ready to attack this kind of disposition with fact, with reality. And that's what I believe. Now, if you look at it, even within our system, there are people who never believe in anything the government is doing. You are talking of perception of the public. In the same public, you have opposition people. In the same public, you have corrupt people. And these guys they run institutions. Some of them have access to money. They can afford to fund any report. They can afford to fund any project that will run down the effort of the government. And in as much as doing that, we must also wake up and discover that these guys are there and must be ready to take them along. And that's how to tackle this kind of situation that has been created by this report. We can't just keep quiet and begin to sob and begin to say, oh, Nigeria is not fighting corruption and all that. But I've given you the facts. A country where ex-governors have been tried and convicted, they are in jail, where both serving and former senators have been tried and convicted, they are in jail, where both high-ranking and low-ranking public officers have been convicted, private entrepreneurs have been convicted, who have perpetrated corruption. So I believe we're doing well, but there's always room for improvement. So for somebody to choose to believe that we are not doing well, for me, I rather believe the report of Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria and the report of reform-minded Nigeria than believing the report of a foreign agency. And again, I use it to actually inform my disposition and, my readiness to do what is right for my country. Like I did see earlier on, this fight is for everybody. Because in the course of this work, I've come to realize that some people see fighting corruption as a battle between the government and the citizen. It's not. They see it as a battle between AFCC, PACAC, ICPC, the Asset Declaration Bureau, the CCB, and other Nigerians. It's not. So we should see it as a collective fight, as a collective battle. When the FCC is at the forefront, you can't fight it the way FCC is fighting it. Whatever you can do as citizens of Nigeria, because at the end of the day, if we begin to swim in this river of corruption, it will affect everybody. Our children will not be able to go to school. Our roads will become impassable. People will be dying on those roads every day. So as it were, we must wake up as a nation and take our destiny in our hands and be ready to do the right thing and believe the reality. And let us support what is real and let us give all the necessary support. Thank you very much. That would be my time.
Mr. Olukoya, I want to stick with you before we bring in the other guests again. I mean, some persons might argue that to pronounce reforms is one thing, but to actually see those reforms at work is another. You've given examples of the outcome of the exactions of the EFCC plus the number of convictions that you had, say, in 2019. Now, one of the institutional challenges that the criminal administration of justice faced in the past was the slow dispensation of justice. And here we are, we had the ACJA, which is the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, that came in 2015 as part of the institutional reform, more especially in the fight against corruption. How much of a help has the ACJA been in the EFCC's prosecution of criminal cases or corruption cases?
Thank you very much. Like part of the legal reforms, ACJA had actually helped us to fast-track adjudication of cases in our courts. Now you discover that at some point, the Supreme Court came out with a policy, that anti-corruption cases should be given priority. And I think it's every Wednesday or something, they only hear anti-corruption cases. And that's one of the reforms that have been instigated by the provisions of ACJA. Now, you discover that before, cases are there for 10, 15 years. One of the recent prominent cases that we have just got conviction on, we started that case way back in 2007. In 2007. And now we have every right to draw the attention of the judges to the fact that there are provisions in ACJA that says that corruption cases must not be delayed. And once we begin to draw the attention of the judges to that, they will begin to have this consciousness that, look, this thing must be tackled headlong. It's a collective effort, and they will continue to do the right thing. And you see, we need the judiciary to win this battle. We need them. We need the judiciary, both in the area of securing forfeiture orders, which now the judiciary has really woken up and they are supporting EFCC. In a matter of 48 hours, you get an order for forfeiture, especially the non-convention based order. Interim, then another 14 days, advertisement. So within a month, that could be adjudicated upon. Now, when it comes to also the issue of the retrial, and we believe the judiciary has also woken up. So we are getting the necessary cooperation from the judiciary. If we don't have the cooperation, if they are not working according to the dictates of ACJA, we wouldn't have recorded as many as 1,268 convictions. That is just EFCC. ICPC has their own record of conviction. Other police and other agencies also have their own record of conviction. Now, time matters in fight against corruption. And I'm going to give you a typical example of where and how we need the help of judiciary and also other international community, in addition to the provisions of ACJA. I was somewhere to deliver a lecture on asset recovery. And I cited a case study of what is popularly known as Abuja loot. Probably between $3 and $5 billion. We were able to trace the loot to about 12 different countries. And each country has their own legal jurisdiction. Some countries we have been successful with them. Some countries we are still struggling. And now, 20 years running, 20 years down the line, we've just been able to recover just like half of the money that was looted. Or to repatriate half of the money that was looted. So if it has taken us through to some legal differences in legal jurisdictions and all that, and attitude of courts in certain countries, if it has taken us 20 years to recover half of that loot, that means reasonably it could take us another 20 years to recover the remaining. So if you are recovering money that was stolen within 2-3 years, if it takes you 40 years to recover that, then you will know what you have at hand. So you need the necessary support of judiciary, a support of all the stakeholders, in addition to those who are in charge of legal reforms. It's also our National Assembly as well, because not only ACTA, there are other laws there. There's Money Laundering Act, other laws that are actually important and are necessary to the success of this fight against corruption. So, in short, we are having the support of the judiciary, but we continue to ask for more so that we can stay true to the compliance with the provisions of ACTA.
Can I comment on this issue of why the outcome of the assessment on Nigeria is likely to be the same? It is because Transparency International uses the wrong parameters for Nigeria. You know, if you want to investigate, interrogate a policy, you begin from questions to answers. Unfortunately, Transparency International begins from answers to questions. You are not likely to get the right answers. Answers don't answer answers. It is questions that will lead you to answers. In their case, because of the wrongness of the methodology, you have a situation where the parameters that will be favorable to a country will not be used. Today, if you ask me to assess the fight against corruption in Nigeria as an academic, I will see what FRS is doing, what JAM is doing, what NPA is doing, what NECO is doing, what EFCC is doing, what ICPC is doing, what judiciary is doing, what the police are doing. These are the parameters that are relevant to Nigeria, practical, not perception. And you can gauge them, assess them, give them values. But by the time you go to a certain political angle of Nigeria and you ask what do you have to say about the fight against corruption in Nigeria, you know the answer. You don't need anybody to tell you the answer. You know it. So I think Transparency International should avoid this academic laziness and become rigorous. United Nations UNOGC has done it. They just brought out their report on Nigeria covering 3 major issues: vote buying, nepotism, and one other variable. Very scientific. And they covered the entire country. They went to households. They did a sample of 33,000 Nigerians. And 33,000 Nigerians cannot be wrong. And it cut across every spectrum of the country. So that's a scientific and acceptable assessment of the country. When it comes out and it says that you are right here, you accept it in good faith. You are wrong here, you accept it in good faith. But not a situation where a group that is not open, because most of these organizations, they want to be included. But when they want to do their businesses, they don't include others. So henceforth, we want a situation where before the assessment of countries, the countries to be assessed should have representation on setting out the parameters. You don't sit alone and set out parameters that suit you to assess a country. Then while the country is working on those parameters you have assessed this year, next year you shift ground. You keep changing the rules in the middle of the game. So I think that is why even next year, we are likely to be here complaining that Transparency International has assessed Nigeria wrongly, because next year I can guarantee you it will use wrong parameters. But we will never get tired. They can assess us, we'll come back and say that it is wrong based on the facts on the ground.
Professor Rada and gentlemen, so this is the way perception works. There are persons who are in the business of perception management, which also has an impact on reputation management. All right, well, let's take the Nigerian situation. The secretary for the EFCC was talking about how, for instance, the reforms in the administration of criminal justice plus practice directions by the Supreme Court and other legal instruments are now aiding the fight against corruption, not only just for conviction, asset forfeiture, and recovery within our jurisdiction. In the past, the perception used to be, these former governors, former senators, they have so much money, a case can drag on for 1 year, 2 years, by which time you would have lost vital evidence. It's all a way of frustrating the case. But here we are, we've had these reforms in recent years, and yet this perception lingers that in fact we have climbed down in our ranking in the fight against corruption globally. Dr. Abari, again, I come back to you, with respect, to the orientation that this does. Look, if the reality now is these measures are working, why then the hangover that the measures are not working, because that's the outcome of saying that we are not fighting the corruption frontally.
It's simple, Kinsley. It's because it is a perception that has developed over a period, and it has actually kind of stuck into the mindset of the people. And the only way to do it, actually, to reverse it, is to be consistent in narrating, in giving a different narrative that reflects the realities. Consistently bring out what is happening. Consistently bring out what is happening. Bring out what is happening. Make the people see it. Make it aware, and make the people aware that they are part and the parcel of the process, and they must own it, and be seen also to be owning it, and be driving the process. Now, if we were able to do this, and I think part of the reforms are actually out to address these fundamentals. And I think both at the level of institutions, at the level of individuals, at the level of agencies of government, all hands must be on deck to tell the stories as they are now playing out.
Could it be that all of this is being done, but it's not, properly, or it's the communication channel to Nigerians? I'm speaking to the fact that you are the DG of NOA, in terms of, people getting enough information, or the avenue of, communicating to them as to how much is being done in the fight against corruption, in terms of the fact that more still needs to be done in communicating the efforts that has been made?
I agree with you, yes. I think more needs to be done. More needs to be done because you are talking about an issue for which people get truly committed, for wrong and for right reasons. When you are fighting corruption, definitely you should expect corruption to fight back. And how are they fighting back? They fight back through subverting the course of justice. They fight back through the use of the media. They fight back against in fact, they can even, if they want to leverage on numbers, they fight back through the use of religious sentiments. If they want to leverage on ethnicity, they fight back through recourse to paramodal interests. And if they want to actually fight back, they fight back through the use of we are being prosecuted for political reasons. So there are actually a very wide spectrum of reasons why and how corruption fights back. So in this respect, a consistent, organized, synchronized, and closely interwoven approach to telling a different narrative needs to be done. I think we need to see better coordination in the way and manner in which the correct information should get to the public. In the National Orientation Agency, for example, we have a platform we call the Local Government Assembly, where we talk to the people in a town hall meeting. You talk to them in the manner they understand in their own language. But you see, some of the things you find is even very interesting. Like when you go to tell people about the amount of money stolen, in some of the languages it is not even translatable in their own language because the amount is not even there. They can't even imagine it. Is this same government that says there is no money, and this amount of money has been stolen from where? From where? So you have to begin the process of telling them it is because this school has not been built, this water borehole has this borehole has not been fixed, this road has not been fixed, and this is why all the money that should have come actually has now gone. So that is how you begin to make the people key in and relate directly their experiences to the effect of corruption.
All right, Dr. Barry and gentlemen, we're taking a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll take some comments from our viewers who have sent in their tweets, and then return to our guests.
My name is Balaunti. I'm the Managing Director of Petroleum Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of NNPC. There are significant price discrepancy between Nigeria and its neighbors across Africa. There's a discrepancy of between 150 to 250 naira. That creates an incentive for arbitrage, whereby smuggling triumphed by taking petroleum product across the neighbors so that they can be sold at higher price. While the smugglers are making the money, Nigeria is paying for it. And that payment is distorting everything that we do in terms of planning, in terms of our ability to fund, and thereby taking money that is meant for development. The introduction of this Operation White will have a reduction of close to 6 million liters on daily basis, which if you take an average of 150, translate to a saving of over 1 billion naira every day. That is the benefit of Operation White, and we have started seeing the great benefit.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of Nigerian Television Authority. We're broadcasting live from our studios here in Abuja. Just as my colleague Kingsley indicated earlier, we have tweets coming from those of you that are watching. If you have questions, you have comments for our guests, you can send your question or comments via our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. But in the meantime, we'll take the tweets that have been sent in. And the first one is from Festus Akimboyiwa. He says, Transparency International should try to measure actual corruption in Nigeria instead of perceived corruption, which can never be bias-free. Their report will always be unreliable as long as they depend on foreign countries for their data.
And Akejo Olagbajo has this tweet. Now, the report reminds us that the country may not be free of corruption. Let us work harder to make the nation corrupt-free and earn respect from the international community.
Law Alpha.
By the way, I'm just wondering, the report doesn't say that there's any country that is corrupt-free.
Yeah. And America dropped...
None scored 100 over 100.
And America, the almighty America, dropped some steps down in this report. Law Alpha says, I think this ranking of Nigeria was done out of mischief and bad faith. Nigeria under President Buhari is witnessing a gradual and steady abstinence from corruption.
Titus Monday Knock. We really need to re-strategize our anti-corruption drive. I want to see a situation where those who have looted treasury and fled overseas are repatriated home, tried and punished accordingly. And I hope you've been listening to this conversation. Part of the challenges in seeking to repatriate those who are hiding abroad.
And this one is from Jilly Jack Solomon. It says, with or without corruption perception index, Nigerians want President Buhari's government to continue to raise his game to fight grand corruption and to improve the ability of anti-corruption agencies to be more effective and efficiently discharge their mandate.
Mike Ayankwo, no matter Nigeria's position on the list, which shows remarkable improvement on what used to be, there is still concern that corruption is still in the system. Governments at all levels should do more to stamp out corruption. Now is the time.
And this one is from Ibrahim Modu Aji. Says, it is only under this administration that Nigeria gets to know that corruption is really a bad thing. This alone is an achievement. However, a lot needs to be done, especially by putting stringent laws and policies to prevent corruption from happening.
Now, this is from a handle, OSCT. That's Oyeleye Adeyemi. Now, with the level of fight against corruption in the country, I'm sure that we are above the current ranking by Transparency International. I hope the federal government puts in more efforts to tackle corruption from all aspects, most especially political office holders.
Jimo Obayomi says, I want government to look at the possibility of setting up a special tribunal to speed up the trial of all cases of corruption and ensure that the culprits receive sentences due as deterrent. Also, monies recovered must be transparently accounted for.
Chris Onwugamba tweets, if we reject Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, which other parameter do we have as an objective assessment?
And this one is from Yahaya Wada. It says, good morning, crew. I think the report of Transparency International is far from the truth on the ground in Nigeria. I don't need their report to know that so many highly placed corrupt elements have been jailed under the present administration. This is the first time we see a real fight against corruption in Nigeria.
Comrade Alhaji Ngala, we had to adopt the Chinese system of fighting corruption, whereby corrupt people are sentenced to death. That's the only way we can keep corruption in Nigeria.
David Jack Solomon said, with or without corruption perception index, Nigerians want President Buhari's government to continue to raise the game. Okay, we've already taken that tweet earlier. So those are the tweets that we have. You can continue to be a part of this conversation online via our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. Send in your tweets, your comments, your suggestions.
Well, one aspect, and incidentally one of the contributors also mentioned that, in terms of, again, seeing the reforms at work, advocacy at work and all of that, do we have a sense of the numbers now, say from the EFCC? Usually you would act on petitions. In the past, I mean, the view was that grand corruption was on the loose. Senior ranking government officials have now said, listen, there is a pushback against grand corruption. Yes, you may still have instances of petty corruption as you have elsewhere, but are we still seeing what we used to see in the past? I mean, say in the public sector, where you're supposed to wanton raid on the public treasury?
Thank you very much. I think by virtue of what we are privy to as people who are at the forefront of this battle, we have discovered that where the petitions are still coming in their number, large numbers, just like Prof has said, we are not shying away from the fact that there is still corruption in the system. And that's why we are saying we need to up our games. They are still coming in their numbers. But there's something we have also discovered, that the propensity, as it were, has reduced drastically. I talk to people outside. We bring in people who are investigating for interrogations and all that. And people tell us, look, now in our places of work, if somebody who used to steal 20 naira, if you want to steal money now, probably reduce it to 5 naira, and we ask questions, is CFCC around? Are they around? Are they around? Now somebody said, there's a program we are planning. It's called the National Financial Crime Summit. I happen to chair the committee. We sent invitation letters to some agencies who are institutional members of our commission to come for a meeting. So interestingly, one of them told me last week when we met that, look, when I saw your letter, I haven't read the letter actually, but I saw the envelope. My PA came to deliver the envelope. Oh God, this is from EFCC. Waiting happened. He said, oh God, waiting happened. What did you do? Not until we opened the letter and read it, to the hearing of everybody, they thought it was an invitation for, investigation or interrogation. And so that will show you, if a PA in an office can see the envelope of the AFCC, and what runs in his mind is that somebody must have committed, financial crime. I think these are realities. These are facts. Yes, the petitions are still coming in, but generally you discover that propensity, that tendency has reduced. And that is what we are talking about. And that is what we actually see and what we want to achieve on regular basis, in AFCC. And again, I also like to say that the issue of financial crimes and corruption, is very dynamic as well. These perpetrators, they devise different means on regular, especially this era of electronic banking and high tech, in various areas of financial transactions. As you are catching them, they are also discovering new methods. And we also try as much as possible to do everything possible to make sure that we also, develop, policies. We also develop our investigative tactics to also meet up with the rate of development, even in the perpetration of crime. And so you can't run away from that. somebody who is criminally minded will always, not until you prove that must be consequence, it will not change. And that's what we have seen. It's all over the world, not only in Nigeria. It's everywhere. Now, when they see that people go to jail, it's real. If you serve as a governor today, the possibility of you going to jail tomorrow, if you commit financial crime, is there. That will checkmate people. If you are a senator today, you discover that if you steal money that is voted for constituency development project development, you could be caught and you could go to jail. That will checkmate people. It doesn't matter your level. It doesn't matter your status in the society. If you believe that there will be consequence for such act, then that will put you in check. That's exactly what we are trying to say. There's no country that has totally eradicated financial crime. No. But what we are saying is, when you do one, is there any possibility of being caught? And I tell you, the possibility is there. It has become a reality in Nigeria. If you are caught, can that process be vitiated? I can tell you 99% it's not going to be vitiated. Now, if it's not going to be vitiated, is there any possibility of going to jail or getting convicted? Yes, and the possibilities exist. Now, apart from that, I also tell you that perpetrators sometimes prefer to go to jail, provided the process of crime is not taken away from them. So that's what we have also ensured in AFCC. In fact, that's one of the first steps we take in investigation. We make sure that all those assets that we have stolen, if we are able to establish predication, we put measure in place that will deprive you of access to those properties. You know, because some of them choose to go to jail. After all, they say they will give you 10 years. When I come back, I'll come and enjoy my life.
Yeah, and that used to be the perception that you steal so much, and then they will give you they will give the person 6 months imprisonment, and then when it
sometimes all chance of fine.
Yeah, when it comes back, you know, he begins to enjoy his load. But the reality is changing.
It's changing. It's changing.
All right,
Professor Rada.
Professor Rada.
Yes.
As you, I know you're itching to respond to some of the things. Okay. Okay. So I'm also going to ask you. Of course, the government, the EFCC, has rejected this perception index. But just as you indicated earlier, there are other things that we could learn from this perception index. Yes. What are those things that you think we could learn?
You see, when I read after the report and the ranking, the TI man, who is a friend, a colleague in the fight against corruption, Awal Musarraf Sajjani, gave his analysis. And I found the analysis somewhat disturbing, because it's like mixing oil with water. One aspect of it will be talking about violent crimes. The other will be talking about human rights. The other will be talking about kidnapping. Then this one is talking of corruption, etc. So I want a situation where we have a disaggregated data. You are ranking Nigeria on corruption. These things are familiar to us. Let us use the normal yardstick of gouging corruption. Then Nigeria will look at it carefully and scientifically and understand and act. What I find useful in his analysis is that, why is Nigeria unable to establish the National Procurement Council? That worries me too. So we can learn from that. Nigeria should set up that, since it's a requirement. And what is the problem in our government setting up the council? Secondly, you have the Process of Crime Act. We should be able to pass that stage, because we have engaged in multi-stakeholder discussions regarding the poker, and it's going to serve this country well. Because if you want to be fair regarding the fight against corruption in Nigeria, you will realize that in terms of identification of loots, confiscation, seizure, we are doing well. But in terms of management, Nigeria is not doing well. We have collected a lot. EFCC has done. ICPC is doing wonderfully. A lot of loots are being taken away. NFIU is trailing a lot of funds. But in terms of management, transparently managing it, for us in Nigeria and everybody in the world to know this is being done honorably, fairly, with integrity, is not there. And it worries me, So there are a couple of things, poker, the council, and a few things to do with sensitization. But the bulk of the analysis, I mean, is just mixing oil with water. I want a situation where you disaggregate your data and concentrate on the meat of the matter. That is why at the level of PACAC, some 2-3 months ago, we gave a number of advisors to the president. He's looking at them. I can share 2. And it's for all of us, like he said, to key into it. The president is concerned about the cost of governance in Nigeria. Because cost of governance has 2 major problems. First, it hinders the government from resources to provide infrastructure. Then the kind of money being spent to maintain some elite in the executive arm of government, in the legislature, in the judiciary, and some of us around, is so much that it encourages corruption. So as a country, to stem the tide of corruption, let us look at cost of governance. Let us reduce the amount of money we spend on this kind of politically exposed persons. Then number 2, the president is worried that the fight against corruption seems to be concentrating at the national level. Not much is being done by the state governments and the local governments. And a lot of money is being moved from the center to the state government to the local government. Therefore, we should be concerned. So the report, largely inaccurate, largely unacceptable, but like I told you, in sociology you have manifest function, you have latent function. The manifest function of the report is to say that Nigeria is doing poorly, is doing badly, we reject it, but in it you identify 1 or 2 things that can be beneficial to us, and we are going to do that, especially because at the level of the committee we are going to get all the data sets they use to come to this conclusion. Then we'll tell Nigerians our position.
Professor Rada, thanks a lot. Dr. Abare, again, still coming to sensitization, one of the points, I think we had also had cause to raise this on Good Morning Nigeria. The fact that you have ICPC, the fact that you have NFIU, EFCC, and all that, doesn't mean, for instance, that the state attorneys general have no function to perform. In fact, if anything, they are the law enforcement officers of their respective states. But there are very few instances reported of prosecution of corruption cases at the subnational level by the subnational entities. What, in your opinion, is required to be done in terms of focusing attention with regard to sensitization of the people to say, look, you have the instrumentalities to deal with this right here under your nose. It's not every time you have to go to the Jabi headquarters of the EFCC.
Well, that's very true. It's actually a worrisome situation that most of the activities are concentrated at the national level. At subnational levels, a lot needs to be done. And when the Freedom of Information Act was signed in, I think, 2011?
That's right.
That is actually one very potent tool that should have been in the hands of Nigerians, which they can use to interrogate public officers and the public expenditure. This, unfortunately, is not being done, and not for lack of sensitization, but because in most instances, the use of the Freedom of Information Act had been limited only to civil society. Now, it is against this backdrop that the National Orientation Agency organized a national stakeholder forum sometimes last year to bring out all the Freedom of Information Officers' desks in MDAs, you know, and we cascaded the message to go down to the states. Now, a lot that can be done now lies with the citizens, because this is where most of activities of government are taking place, state level and at the local government level. At the local government level, unfortunately, not much of governance is taking place. At the local government level, not much of governance is taking place. In fact, the local governments are completely been bereft of their normal functions. They cannot clear drains, they cannot even maintain cemeteries or even market stalls, and they cannot even ensure as basic things as sanitation and hygiene. So I think citizens needs to be aware that this is where, and especially now that a lot of resources are going directly to the local governments. So religious leaders, traditional rulers, civil society organizations, and of course also other stakeholders in the management of public resources needs to have a coordinated approach so that people are made aware, and that the handlers of public funds at such national level are also made to account.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just speak to one point?
Very quickly, 1 minute,
yes.
please.
Talk about, he spoke about POCA, the Process of Crime Act. Now, there was an erroneous perception given by that report about POCA, and I read it. And it's not true. Government is interested in passing that act. But you see, as a lawyer, I believe when an act that is meant, or a law that is meant to address certain situations, you must sit down at the formative or drafting stage. You must observe due diligence. The right thing must be done. Now, we took that draft and we look at it. We discovered that in that draft, that law, if eventually is passed, is going to take away the powers of anti-corruption agencies and a lot of law enforcement agencies from investigating assets, from confiscation, from applying to courts for forfeiture. Now, when you take these powers away from them, then what is left?
Nothing.
What's left? So we felt those things should be looked into, and see how we can review it. And of course, if you want to set up a management agency, that's fine. But don't take the powers away from existing anti-corruption agencies.
I think that has been addressed. Yes, I have been part of it. You see, ICPC, EFCC are concerned that the agency to be established, which is an agency to manage the assets recovered, will also go into investigation. I was part of it. And instead of anything to do with investigation, prosecution, as far as that agency is concerned, has been taken away from the bill. So I feel the government has to go a step further. Expedite action, because management of assets in this country is a big problem. Let's not shy away from it. The fact of the matter is you are doing fantastically well. You have recovered a lot, but you cannot recover and manage. The philosophy of integrity and the philosophy of transparency requires that you recover. Let other people manage it.
What is the status of the bill? Is it still with the National Assembly? Or
yes, National Assembly.
All right, so the message therefore is to the National Assembly.
And they are working on it because what they need now is concurrence between the House of Reps.
Houses.
Yes, between the House of Reps and the Senate. And the Senate is trying to expedite action on it just to concur. Because they have looked at it at the
House.
Yes.
All right, it's on that note, I want to say a very big thank you to Ola Olukoide. He's the Secretary to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Thank you for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure.
And also a very big thank you to Professor Sadiq Issa Arada, Executive Secretary, Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Director General of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, Dr. Garba Abari. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming. All right, now let's take some sports stories.
Enugu Rangers recorded their first win in Group A of the CAF Confederations Cup following a 1-0 away win against Egyptian club Pyramids FC at the Cairo International Stadium on Sunday night. Ifeanyi George scored the winning goal for Rangers in the 73rd minute following a pass from Isaac Lute. The Flying Antelopes moved to third position in the table with 5 points from 3 games. Salisu Yusuf's men will host Al-Masry of Egypt in their last group game next Sunday. While in Group D, Ayimba were held to a 1-1 draw by Morocco's Hassani Akadir and Abba. The hosts took the lead following Yusuf Al-Fahil in the 2nd minute. Augustine Oladapo equalized for the home team in the 16th minute. Ayimba now occupies 7th position in the group with 7 points from 5 games. The People's Elephants